event this semester, and we've got the founder of Bonnie Burrito, personal favourite of mine in Edinburgh, Nick Forrest. So a little bit about Nick. Nick is the founder of Bonnie Burrito and Bonnie Sauce Company. He started Bonnie Burrito in 2014 after investing in a mobile kitchen. He studied history and journalism at Aberdeen University and then worked for the Royal College of Surgeons under the commercial sector. And that's where he sort of first got into food. And since Bonnie Burrito has, blown up, is a bit of a cult classic in Edinburgh. And obviously he started the Sauce Company as well. So Nick, do you want to add to that for introductions?
No, you covered everything very well there. Good research. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, delighted to be the first person on this. Yeah, no, just yeah, I went to obviously uni, studied history and journalism. Didn't obviously go into any of those fields, but it just kind of shows that if you guys are at uni, if you're not sure what you're going to do, just realize that there's other opportunities there. But uni was great in terms of contacts. I wouldn't have met certain people in the field without being at university. So yeah, even though I didn't go down that route, it was definitely the whole experience of university was important. Left uni, and like any student, a lot of sort of student debts, so needed to sort of make some cash. Luckily got a job straight after uni at the Royal College of Surgeons, just working in their sort of commercial sort of department, doing events, organising, which was useful for me later down the line when I got the mobile kitchen, and a lot of that is booking events and working them. But whilst working at the Royal College of Surgeons, I just realised that I wanted to do my own thing, and saw the opportunity to get into the sort of the mobile food industry. Street food was sort of a growing market at that point. There wasn't a huge amount in Scotland or in Edinburgh, and I just did a bit of research. Obviously, practiced cooking. Figured out what I wanted to do. Mexican food was sort of something I was really passionate about, and I thought there was a bit of a gap in the market, sort of niche. It's kind of got more competitive now since 2014, but yeah, still not that much in the area. Obviously at Edinburgh Uni we get a lot of students from all over the world, a lot from America and the States, Mexico, and burritos, Mexican food is such a big thing out there. And so when it came to sort of looking for a location, I wanted to be close to the university to sort of look at my sort of customer base being sort of students, and I thought burritos might be quite sort of unique, something different, and maybe bring a bit of sort of home feel to those who were maybe coming over from across the pond, but still wanted to kind of keep to my roots. So I wanted to do sort of Mexican and a Scottish cuisine, hence some of the recipes that we've got like haggis still on our burritos, and pulled pork with iron brew. So yeah, it's just kind of mixing the two together, because I obviously realized that I'm not Mexican or have any sort of heritage, so I think it would have been maybe a bit strange for me to do completely Mexican. So I wanted to sort of infuse the two sort of cultures, because I obviously have quite a big passion for both. I think Scotland's kind of underrated in terms of food. I think there's some really good food suppliers out there. We've got such great sort of quality ingredients that I think if you can use some of that and sort of incorporate into sort of foreign cuisine, then go for it.
Good to go. Yeah, I mean, I agree. As a veggie, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to go to a burrito place and get something other than peppers. So it's quite cool that I could get like veggie haggis, in Edinburgh, in a burrito. It's something that only you guys do. Okay, yeah, cool. So yes.
Yeah, veggies. I mean, since 2014, the amount of like veggie sort of options have just increased, and there's I've definitely noticed in the market there's a huge amount of people desperate for more variety in terms of veggie options, and vegan as well. So that's something we're very conscious of. We started with just veggie haggis, but then we started looking into like we've got this vegan chicken that is basically just kind of mushrooms, a little bit of spices in there. But we're always looking to sort of expand our veggie options for for everyone, because yeah, it's definitely it's growing a lot since we started.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's take it back to uni, right? So you did history and journalism. What sort of got you into history and journalism in the first place? And then what got you out of it into events, I suppose?
Yeah, so went to school in Edinburgh, left school with my hires, quite like nothing special, but like decent. I applied for universities. I looked actually into doing law, got into a few places there, but kind of history was always something I really enjoyed at school, and I kind of always wanted to kind of think about doing journalism as well, and thought history was maybe quite an interesting thing to go into first, and then see where that took me. So it kind of came down to actually what I was kind of passionate about with law. Like, although I didn't know much about it, I kind of didn't feel comfortable going into something that I didn't know I would like. So I thought, I'll see how history goes. I went to Aberdeen, studied that, and just really enjoyed it. Just learning about the degree and everything about it. But I realized quite soon into it that in terms of competition, there's a huge amount there. And actually, I mean, history was great, but leaving uni, there wasn't a huge amount, unfortunately, of jobs available. I mean, teaching you could go into, I could have done a postgrad and stuff like that, and there was a few little things there, but the competition was high. So therefore, I kind of thought, right, well, what can I do? Journalism kind of came up, so I did that at RGU, Robert Gordon's University in Aberdeen, for a year. Really enjoyed that as well. But again, a degree that a lot of competition in journalism, and I think journalism is great, but you need to be so passionate about it to go far in it. I'm not sure. I realized kind of into it that I'm not sure I was really passionate as some people, and therefore kind of left uni and got a few offers of jobs, did a bit of freelance work, but then the Royal College of Surgeons kind of commercial thing came up. I'd worked in hotels and restaurants before, so kind of just fell back into the food and beverage industry, the sort of catering sort of side of things. And then that was kind of when I thought to myself, actually, I want to do my own thing. And if I was going to do it, now is the time, because I didn't have a family. I wasn't supporting a family in terms of like costs. I was living at home, so I was helping out a little bit with rent, but nothing like renting in, as many students will know, renting in town or paying mortgage and stuff. So it was less risk for me to take this opportunity, and I thought, I'll do it now. And if it doesn't go well, then I'll just I can always go back to sort of looking into something along my degree, or maybe going back to uni and doing something else. But thankfully it seemed to do okay. I'm still
definitely,
here.
it definitely worked out in the best possible way in the end. Okay, I mean, that's quite interesting, right? So you sort of pursued your passion at that time. Do you think at the back of your mind you knew that you wanted to be an entrepreneur later on? Like, did you get involved with any societies, like the Entrepreneurship Society, for example? Was there one there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wish actually when I was in Aberdeen there was something like what you guys do. I mean, there was probably something similar along those lines, but maybe on a lot smaller scale. But it certainly wasn't available in terms of, it wasn't obvious it was there. I think maybe if I dug deeper, potentially, but I think what you guys are doing quite well is you're getting your marketing out, and for any student interested, it seems to be quite simple to kind of get in touch with you guys and sort it out. Whilst in Aberdeen, I didn't see anything like that. But if there was, I definitely would have jumped at the chance, because I just love the whole idea of running your own business and just, coming up with ideas and just kind of pushing things through. It is something that I've always kind of been interested in. But I certainly, in terms of like practice and experience, I worked sort of in a sort of society with my sports team at the time, and I was president of that, and not completely similar, but there was a few similarities in terms of running a club, and obviously, you have to keep an eye on like the numbers, and obviously everyone who's a member there. So a bit like if you were running a business, you've got to keep an eye on your customers, your staff. You kind of had to do that with being a member of a sports society. So that was kind of experience there. Apart from that, just doing like little small jobs here and there. Certainly the journalism degree as well. I wasn't getting a wage or anything, so the only way I was getting paid was to basically freelance. So finding articles and kind of just going out there and going up to newspapers and trying to sell them, stories that you would hope they would like. And that's kind of some ways similar to running a business in the sense that, it's all on you kind of in some ways. And you have to not be afraid to kind of put yourself out there, and you might get rejections and stuff like that. Certainly there was that was the case at uni. There was a few, newspapers that didn't want my stuff, and that was, the fine, you just take it on the chin. But thankfully, some came through, and so these were kind of experiences. But I always wanted to kind of, back in my mind, I always knew I wanted to do something like this, but it was just opportunities and kind of going to uni and seeing what else was out there as well, and not just kind of focusing on, right, I would definitely want to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to give everything an opportunity, because you just don't know, like something else might fall in your lap, and that could be great. You might fall into a job that you really love, and therefore you might want to be an entrepreneur. But if you're in something that you enjoy anyway, then there's no real need to sort of go chasing after something unless you really want to do it. But nothing at that time had come up that I knew I definitely wanted. So yeah, just everything kind of sort of opportunities aligned, and that was kind of how I ended up kind of going down that route. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I agree. It's always better to be more proactive, get involved with lots of things, and then you can figure out what you want. Would you say these are sort of your core values then? So proactivity, and you mentioned putting sort of customers first. Is that carried on into the brand of Bonnie Burrito?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, our brand is all about the customers, and I mean, staff as well. Staff are very important. They're probably both as important as each other, but our core brand values are just making the customer sort of happy to come into the shop, or it's a bit harder with takeaways and stuff, because unfortunately the delivery drivers aren't your staff. But yeah, certainly coming in through the shop, we want customers to feel like, oh, this is a really friendly place. Friendly faces serving us. The food's obviously important as well, but I think just as important is that feeling of, as you leave, you feel like you were valued, and that, I think that's so important. That can make you stand out from the crowd, and that's certainly when it comes to sort of hiring staff, and kind of just looking at what's out there. For me, it's just having a really sort of nice, friendly personality. It means, for me, it's just as important as your CV showing like a huge amount of experience. You can have all that experience, and that's great, and that's obviously really important. But if you don't look happy to be there in some ways, like it doesn't work for us, because we want people to be really happy to be working at our shop, and when customers come in, we want them to sort of interact with them. So we kind of look into that when we're hiring, and certainly when we're hiring, we hire people who are kind of similar sort of interests as the customers who are coming in. So we hire a lot of students, based on the fact that students are always kind of the ones looking for jobs, but also in our area, I would say majority of our customers are students, and so it's nice for students to come in and speak to sort of a familiar face and chat sort of similar interests. But I would definitely say to anyone out there is just kind of get yourself out there, join societies, join whether it's the Entrepreneur Society, a sporting society, meet people. Obviously, this is a bit trickier now with what's going on in the world, but certainly, hopefully, it gets back to normal. But when that does, I think it's really important to just kind of throw yourself out your comfort zone and try something that you might not even know you like, but but you're not sure about, but sort of see what it's like, and you never know what you might just enjoy, and also you get to meet people from different sort of backgrounds, and I think that's also important as well. So definitely, I would say that's sort of brand core is kind of being, getting out there and just sort of being friendly and nice.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Would you say you're still very involved with this hiring process? I mean, obviously, right at the start, you were responsible for building the, OG team. How has your responsibilities changed from, 2014 to 2020?
Yeah. So yeah, when I started in 2014, it was all on me in terms of hiring and basically everything about the business was down to me. 2 years down, I've been lucky that I've got a really good manager who's come on board. So he helps a little bit with the load, in terms of like invoicing, hiring staff, keeping on top of everything with health and hygiene, which is vitally important. And obviously the staff you hire as well is they help sort of also kind of spread the load a little bit. At the end of the day, it still comes down to me, and I'm still heavily involved in terms of the hiring. My manager Matt, he will sort of bring them in and he'll maybe interview them and stuff, but I'll also speak to them as well and make sure that we're both happy with them representing our brand, because your staff are basically your brand ambassadors, if that's sort of makes sense. So they are representing your brand. So I certainly I'm still involved in the sense that I want to make sure no matter who we hire, it sounds like they're a good fit for us. But yeah, as you kind of build your business up, I think it's important that you don't sort of just rely heavily on yourself. I think it's important to trust the people you work with, your staff, because that's why otherwise why do you hire them if you don't trust them? So you've got to give them sort of leeway and certainly let them kind of do their thing. If they've got the skills, let them do that, and it also gives them a bit more confidence, and it gives them like a sort of more fulfilled sort of role in the job if they feel like they've got a bit of creative power as well. And certainly that's the case with our job. I'm always asking staff, whether it's just front of house or whether it's management, just ideas and stuff like that, and sort of be free to like kind of come up with ideas. Don't feel like it's not something you have you don't have to do. Just speak to me, and just if you've got an idea, I kind of encourage it, because we get a lot of intelligent people working with us and people with lots of creative ideas, and I think it's always important to listen and hear what they're saying, because I'm certainly not perfect, and so I don't know, like these guys know. Sometimes these guys know better than me, because also the sort of clientele we're dealing in, customer base, they kind of know them better, so they might have an idea. So I try and get these guys to put in their input and stuff, and certainly back to your original question. It's nice to sort of take a bit more of a backseat and kind of let others also help run the place, and not just do it all by myself, because it's pretty tough going, and eventually you can burn yourself out. So I think it's important to spread the load.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great answer. What would you say is the biggest sort of groundbreaking idea that one of your employees has brought forward? Like, have they helped sort of shape the brand, or would you say you're more the visionary and they help add things to it?
Oh, it's good question. No, I think everyone's come up with some like really good stuff. And it's like it can be like really small stuff. Like sometimes even the smallest things can make a big difference. Like just and like just trying to think off the top of my head, but something so small as like recently, just for example, a sort of staff member thought we did nachos, and the idea was, right, we'll do our nachos, we'll get the cheese, we'll melt it and stuff like that, but it was quite time consuming and stuff, so we actually just started putting our cheese into a sort of slow cooker and made a sort of cheese sauce, which was, we sort of tested it on customers, and customers seemed to really like it, and it saves us so much time. And it's just something small like that, or whether it's moving we do like naked burritos, which are burrito bowls. It's just moving them to a place that's like within reach. And I know that sounds so stupid, but something like that can make a big difference in terms of like, it just speeds up production, and that just can, I mean, that can save you a lot of money in the long term. So staff have kind of, yeah, small things like that, just maybe adjusting things in the shop where it's easier to access it or something like that. These can be big things. In terms of like the ideas, and like everyone's had a real good input. I've got a business partner, Stephen. He's sort of helped as well. We kind of bounce ideas off each other. Our manager Matt, he kind of came up with the chipotle sauce idea as well. We kind of did something similar, but he kind of mastered it a little bit. So he sort of give credit to him for that. But yeah, sometimes the best ideas can be the ones that almost seem like trivial and like something not that big, but it makes a big difference. Just, you know, small things like, yeah, getting access to something that's, you know, we put in the back, and you're like, well, why did we do that? That's like, you know, we have to then walk to the back or something like that. Why don't we put that to the front? And that's kind of stuff you kind of learn as you're kind of working. And I would certainly, you know, say anyone, whatever you're working in, whether it's a job you know, maybe it's not something for you in the future, but if you've got ideas, you know, honestly, share them with your boss or your manager and stuff like that, because it does honestly, it does make a difference, and it'll, I think it'll make you feel better, but you know, in terms of the way your employer will see you, you know, you'll go up in their estimation and stuff, and don't be afraid to sort of come up with ideas, because I think I would hope most bosses and managers would listen to you and you know, kind of take it on board. I think it's always important to kind of, you know, give your input to these things.
Sure. I think once again it goes back to this proactivity, right? Like, you've got to be confident enough to suggest something, even if it's a little thing. Like, the little things add up, so it's just about, you know, having an impact there. Okay, let's bring it back to the current situation, right? That there's COVID-19. This has affected everyone, but especially the hospitality, you know, food and retail industry. How have you coped with it since the lockdown in March? You know, what things have you introduced?
Yeah, I mean, it's been huge on the hospitality industry. A kind of a big hit on us. We kind of knew it was going to be, but for some people, I think it's been a lot worse than others. We were sort of lucky in the sense that we were a takeaway, and we were therefore able to kind of stay open the whole time. So we didn't have to close at any points, unlike restaurants who obviously require people to come in through the door. We just kind of opened ourselves up, but mainly for deliveries. And certainly if it was walk-ins, it was just one in at a time to keep the social distance and, you know, masks on and everything. I think the biggest thing was just making sure that everyone was safe. Our staff, you know, are so important to us, and I just, you know, I didn't want to put anyone in an uncomfortable position. So we spoke to the staff, we reduced the numbers, and the staff that weren't working were on the furlough scheme, which was great to be introduced by the government, because I think it kept a lot of people ticking over. But those who did work, we made sure that, one, they were happy to do it. If anyone felt uncomfortable, obviously, you know, you didn't have to work, but some wanted to kind of keep that routine going in their life. But we just reduced the numbers, so you were only ever working two, at a time, and there was social distance thing being put in place, antibacterial, wipes and gels and stuff around the place, making sure that we looked into our sort of risk assessment, and obviously added COVID to that. So we added more things into it in terms of washing your hands even more regularly. I mean, we were doing that quite a lot, but we went to the extreme with everything, and just in terms of cleaning, because, you know, we just wanted to be absolutely sure. But the food truck took a big hit. We rely heavily on events with our food truck, but they all got cancelled. So that was a blow. Where the truck is based, up at Lauriston Place near the uni, that kind of had to be scrapped for the time, because we needed to focus on the shop, and also just that location was pretty empty because all the offices had been cleared out in the area. The quarter mile offices like Skyscanner and all those guys had gone to working from home, so there wasn't probably much point in being up there anyway. So yeah, it was a bit of a blow, but we kind of kept ticking over by, and deliveries kind of kept us going. We were able to survive based on our delivery numbers went up. But yeah, it was just it was a strange one, just not knowing kind of what was around the corner and how long it was going to go on for. But we just had to kind of plan for that, and it was just in terms of just kind of reducing our costs, not going crazy with anything, and just kind of reassessing the situation and taking it kind of week by week, and just sort of surviving. I think that was the key, was just kind of getting through it. Now that we're kind of getting back to normal, sort of, it's great that we've been started seeing like return of customers through the door and not just deliveries, which is kind of what we're in it for, is because you want to see a friendly face. I mean, I like deliveries have been great and they've kept us going, but you know, there is something nice about serving people, and we don't want to lose that. But I just hope I hope it stays like this. But obviously, the most important thing is people's health and safety, and we'll just kind of take, you know, whatever the government kind of comes up with. You just have to trust that you know, the experts in this field know what they're talking about, and you just have to follow them. That's what their job is. So yeah, we'll just take anything that comes around the corner.
Sure. I mean, there's lots of speculation that there's going to be another lockdown, right? Like the second wave's coming.
Yeah.
How would you approach this differently, or would you not? Would you just do the same thing again?
Well, I mean, I think there's always things you can look at that maybe you could have, you know, we could do differently and improve on from last time, because this is so new to everyone. You know, you're just kind of learning as you go. I think we would certainly make sure, first and foremost, is that if we can stay open, and that's completely up to the government. If they say we can't, then we take their advice and we do that. But if we can stay open, I think the first thing is to make sure that the staff who are on are happy to work, and they feel comfortable working. If they don't, then there's no, you know, they don't have to if they don't want to. And just making sure again that all our procedures are in place in terms of social distancing, making sure, you know, we're absolutely like on top of everything in terms of social, hand sanitizing and washing, and making sure that there's just no chance of anything spreading. And of course, if anyone feels ill, don't come in to work. But I think we would probably try and kind of stay similar to what we did. I think it kind of worked quite well. But we would just have to wait and see what kind of the new kind of rules were in place before we kind of made any sort of final decision, because they could say to us, you know, takeaways included can't stay open, and therefore, we would have to follow that. We would follow that advice. So yeah.
That, I mean, that would be really tough. Hopefully, they don't just get rid of takeaways.
I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. So, do you have any plans to open up any more actual stores? Because you said the van is a little bit more dependent on, you know, the workers in the area. So maybe by opening another store, you'd, you know, have a new revenue generator.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's important to always kind of look at ways of expanding. We actually used to have two shops. We had the one on South Clark Street, but we also had one in Gorgie, which we opened about a year and a half into the South Clark Street shop being open. It didn't work, but it was a great learning curve. I mean, my advice to anyone in terms of you know, looking into, maybe if you were looking into a shop or anything, is do your market research, and certainly look at location. Gorgie was probably just not the right location at the right time. I think eventually it's got a lot of potential, that area. I think if you look at Dalry Road and the restaurants and takeaways that are building up there, there's a lot of students there, and it's certainly, that place is thriving, and that used to be in the same position as Gorgie, but it's, you know, the footfall there is fantastic, and I think eventually it'll move into Gorgie, but it could take a wee while, and I think we just arrived at the wrong point. We were doing quite well with takeaways, but we probably didn't have the experience in takeaways at that point, because at South Clark Street, it was mostly people through the door. So we went from a sort of, footfall through the door being our key element to Gorgie, which was like purely deliveries, and it's so different to what we'd ever experienced. So we just didn't really maybe have the same experience and know what we were doing as much. I think if we went into it now, we would have done a lot better. But we gave it a year and a half, and sometimes I think it's if you think it's not working, it's maybe best just to sort of move on and just accept it. And I think that's what we did. We just sort of saw that as a shop it wasn't quite doing as well, and it was kind of hindering the other two units that were doing well, the shop at South Clark Street and the trailer. And we thought, it's not, these things are doing well, so we don't want them to be burdened by the fact that Gorgie's not. So we got offered the lease. Someone was offered to take the lease on, and we just thought, like, yeah, it's time to sort of consolidate and just work mainly on the shop and trailer. But now that's being said, that's been like a year since that's happened. We're definitely now looking to expand, and it's all about kind of, location. I think it's important. So we're just keeping our eyes and ears open to what might be out there. But we're just not going to maybe rush it as much as we did previously. I think that's what kind of hindered us as well, was we were so quick to get in that we maybe didn't do our research as well. But now I think we're just kind of, if the right opportunity comes along, we'll definitely look into it. It's something, we certainly won't rule out. Also, we might look into more, maybe like some more trailers as well. But with the whole situation that's going on, events and the hospitality industry is obviously struggling right now. But sometimes opportunities come from that as well. So it's just kind of finding that balance. But yeah, we've definitely got ideas in the pipeline, and we're certainly not just sitting on just the two places, but it's just all about really kind of, doing our research and really concentrating on which the next place will be, because we don't want another situation like Gorgie again, which can sort of sometimes set you back. It's like one step forward, two steps back. So you want to make sure almost the second shop is probably just as important, if not more important, because if you don't get it right, then it can really slow business down.
Yeah, that's definitely sort of the awful combination of bad luck and like timing in a way, isn't it? But I mean, I'm sure we're going to see great things in the future. I just want to encourage the people watching, feel free to send me a message on the group chat, and we can get some of your questions relayed, or you can, turn off your mic, turn off mute as well, and just chat. Keeping it super casual. I have got a question from Jasmine. It's what other CEOs do you look up to and why? So different type of question, but interesting.
Yeah, no. Thanks, Jasmine. That's a good question. I mean, I've read like lots of autobiographies of CEOs. Steve Jobs, obviously Apple, like when he was around, I thought sort of his creative ideas were fantastic. That ability just to sort of, always kind of look at the brand and kind of look at, it's all important. So the most important thing sometimes is the brand, because you're always going to find competition in whatever field you're doing. Obviously there are plenty of other burrito places out there. So to stand out from the crowd, obviously your product is vitally important, but just as important is that brand you're kind of giving out, whether it's, whether it's the design or whether it's the brand could easily just be that sort of vibe you're giving, in terms of like staff being friendly, for example, that sort of friendly atmosphere that you want to create. That's a brand as well in its own right. But yeah, I mean, I've also the guys at Brewdog. I kind of looked up to them because they went to Aberdeen Uni as well. They've done remarkably well with from basically brewing beer in their own flat to where they are now, where they've got these bars open all over the world. I think that's an incredible story. So I was reading a bit of his autobiography over lockdown a little bit, because he gave it out for free, which was nice. So just I mean, the Bros Bagels as well. They've done a great job. So I'm looking into Mama Bros, who's out there. What she's done is amazing. But yeah, I mean, I look at all sorts of fields, not just food, but I think it's important just to kind of take ideas from everyone. But it's always good to look at what other people are doing and kind of learn from them as well, and just take it all in.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of Brewdog, we actually have James. I'm assuming that's who you're talking about.
Yeah,
He's
James,
coming to speak later on in the semester as well, so you should definitely join us for that. That would be good. Okay, cool. So some more questions. Alex is asking, where did you get your funding to start your business?
So the funding, basically I just got it from my own savings. So I saved up after uni. As I was saying, I was working at the Royal College of Surgeons, but I also wasn't spending a huge amount because I was living at home. So I just saved up a wee pot, and I got some inheritance money as well. And yeah, the actual food truck itself wasn't that expensive. I mean, it was, you're still looking at, over 20K, but it's not like life crippling in terms of, tied into a lease or anything like that. So I just saved up and then went for, basically saved my money, went for that. And kind of knowing that it was an asset, and if it didn't go well, then I could always try and resell it and kind of get some of that money back. But certainly I wouldn't have been able to afford a shop or anything like that at the time. It was, the food truck was something that was probably just in my budget at that point. But you can certainly, I did look into sort of funding. You can certainly get loans from all sorts of places. You can look into obviously banks, but just be careful about interest rates. Crowdfunding as well, if that's sometimes you'd need a brand sometimes for that to and a sort of following, but crowdfunding's something that seems to be doing really well right now. Could also look into, there's like the Prince's Trust, which kind of helps support, but I would say if you're looking into getting a loan, Business Gateway, based in Edinburgh, there's one in Edinburgh just on sort of Market Street, I think. I spoke to them and they've got lots of ideas of how you can look to get a bit of funding, and they can put you in the right direction as well. So yeah, I was lucky. I just saved up a bit and had a bit of money saved over, but that took me a good 2 years to save up before I was able to go out there and purchase the food truck. And then from the food truck, the sales that we made from that, I then reinvested, and that's how the shop came along. Also, I was lucky that the business partner I brought in, Stephen, his parents build shops for a living, so they helped support that by building the shop with their own two hands, without the huge costs that would come to. So yeah, bit of luck in there as well.
Sure. Interesting story. Okay, Manos has said, did you see any changes in consumer behaviors during lockdown? And if so, did they lead to any pivots?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest consumer difference was the fact that people were ordering online. And I think that's probably the way the world's going to go a little bit now, especially if people are working from home. But also I think people nowadays are, time is so important to a lot of people, and actually, just getting their food delivered can save them a lot in terms of, getting on with whatever they've got going on. So that was the biggest difference, was online deliveries. The slight issue with us with online deliveries is just the commission you have to pay to all the platforms. So your Just Eats, your Deliveries, and Uber Eats, they do take quite a high commission. So that's sometimes the reason why it's a bit more expensive when you order online than coming in for the shop. But at the same time, it's better than nothing. Like, obviously we would prefer people coming for the shop, but deliveries are great. It just kept us ticking over. Apart from that, yeah, I mean, that was probably the main sort of difference. I think everyone else is kind of just, I would say people are, aware of just kind of social distancing and kind of, making sure that everything is, if people aren't comfortable, if they don't think businesses have put the right sort of measurements in place, then I think people are quite quick. I think people will just not trust it, and so you have to be you have to show that you are, making the effort to put all these things in place, and that what you have is a safe environment. I think that's another sort of consumer difference, is that people are kind of looking at as like, do I feel safe coming in here? Is there like, social distancing? Are they wearing masks? All that stuff. That's obviously a big thing right now.
Cool. Katie's just posted a follow-up question to your response. Would you consider starting your own delivery to circumnavigate this culture change?
My own delivery system, or get my own driver's
so.
Yeah, we'd look into it. So we certainly are looking. At the moment, we are looking into sort of something similar, where we're looking to get sort of our own little kitchen and basically just do deliveries from that, since the world seems to be changing in that way, and we've got something in the pipeline, hopefully in the next few months or so, that's coming out. We have done our own drivers before. However, we were sourcing the drivers from another company, and they were good. There were some really good drivers, but the issue we had was there was also some bad drivers. And the problem was, we would sometimes have one driver, and you would get maybe 4 orders, and obviously you want to try and send as many as you can. And we worked out that 4 was probably the maximum you could send out. The problem was, if like, say one order is all the way down, say for example we're in Gorgie and one order is all the way down in Leith, you might not see the driver for like a good hour, and everyone knows there's like a small window where people kind of eat, like roughly around dinner time, and if you miss out on a good hour, that could be, a lot of orders that you've missed out on. So the good thing about Deliveroo, Uber Eats and Just Eat now, Just Eat's just done this recently, but they have their own drivers. So as soon as you send one order out, if you get another order in, another driver comes through the door pretty quickly. So you're not waiting on the driver coming back. So I think we'll probably kind of stick to this kind of, system at the moment. I think it's the best in terms of just making sure your food goes out there, and also the quality is at its best, because you want, the food the order just to go straight to the customer. You really don't want a driver sending out 4 orders, because the person who's getting it fourth, it's not going to be as fresh as it was. So I think this is probably the best system at the moment that we're using. Cool.
Okay, so I think we've got time for 3 more questions, really. So Kurosh is asking, you've mentioned that many of your customers are constantly coming back to your shop, so you've got a consistent client base. How do you manage to provide the same consistent experience for every customer?
Yeah, it's difficult, and who knows, it might not always be the same, but I think the key is the most important thing for me is just that the staff are aware of, like, just being friendly, making sure that every customer that comes through that door is welcomed in, and leave with that same feeling as the person that was just after them or before. The food, obviously, consistency has to be good. So we have our recipes that we keep to the same sort of similar. It's a similar standard every time. So you have to make sure the food is always kind of the same, so that someone doesn't come in and think, oh, that was completely different from what I had last time. So I think that's important. I think if you look at companies like Domino's, that's how they've built their reputation, is just like, what you're getting in terms of ordering. McDonald's is the same, like it'll always be a McDonald's or a Domino's, and I think that's important in terms of, like, you don't want people leaving and thinking, right, I have no idea what sort of food I'm going to get when I come in. But that's just kind of the main thing, is just sort of making sure staff are aware that everyone is welcomed in. You don't differentiate, and that the food stays that same consistent level. We always make sure that we before the food's put out, we always make sure that it tastes to the levels that we expect, and I think that's important. But yeah, consistency is important. I think you just want to make sure that the customer comes in feeling that same way all the time.
Sure. On a similar topic to sort of reputation, would you be willing to franchise your business? It's a question from Alex.
Yeah, definitely. I think franchising is quite an interesting sort of way to go down. I think we would certainly look into it if there was someone interested. But there's issues with franchising as well, in terms of you've got to make sure that your brand is exactly like you expect it to be if someone's going to take it over. Because if you franchise it off, obviously you lose less. There's less control. So certainly at the start, I think it's important that you get the right people to come in and run it, and make sure that they know all about the business and what what kind of is expected from it. Yeah, with franchising, less control comes in, so you just have to be careful. But yeah, in terms of expanding, Subway have obviously they're big on franchising, and that's something we would certainly look into if the opportunity sort of came around. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Zara was saying, are you thinking of opening branches in other countries? So I suppose a way to scale this down is, would you look at other cities first and then maybe use franchises as the way to expand more organically?
Yeah. I think to begin with, we would probably look just like slightly further afield than Edinburgh. So Glasgow would be sort of somewhere we'd look into. Maybe even as far as like Aberdeen. I think if the further you go, I would certainly at the start, I would still, I'd like to be heavily involved in terms of making sure it all goes well. And the further you go, it becomes a bit trickier in terms of being there. But yeah, if we looked into that, I think then the opportunity to open elsewhere in the world would be something, yeah, we would love to do if we felt people would be up for it. England, yeah, that's obviously next door, so that we could look into that. Ireland as well. But yeah, we certainly are keeping our sort of options open. We wouldn't rule out going elsewhere. But it's just in terms of logistics, really. But I think yeah, if you were going to open up elsewhere in the world, maybe like something like franchising would be the way forward. Yeah, I would imagine that would probably be the sort of safest route.
Sure. Okay. And then one last question from Kurosh. Do you believe that your main selling point is serving ethnic food with a twist, or have you created a distinct, authentic experience because you don't try to perfectly imitate the dishes?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, good question. So I think, yeah, I think the twist thing, certainly with like your haggis burrito or iron brew pulled pork, I think it does. I think it does give you a little bit of sort of an edge in terms of it's quite unique. People come in and customers are always kind of saying, "Oh, that's something different." Sometimes they don't try it because they're scared or something, but you get like a lot of people like interested by it, and I think that can stand out. We were, like I said at the start, I mean, I just love food in general, and I mean, Mexican cuisine is obviously something that I'm really passionate about. I used to love making it at home. I practiced on like family and friends before I even, bought the food truck, and I think that's important as well. Is that you look for feedback from people, like your close friends, your family, and even maybe those ones that that will give you criticism. If I won't be afraid to, I think that's important as well. Give it to those people because sometimes maybe your friends and family will tell you just what you want to hear. So yeah, just sort of practice that. But then I love Scottish food as well, so I was always wanting to bring the two together. And that was kind of how it kind of came about. But yeah, ethnic food with a twist is yeah, that's the way to go. I think if you can do anything that you can sort of maybe make you stand out a little bit from the crowd, yeah, go for it. I think don't be afraid to as well. Like people appreciate people appreciate sort of someone trying to attempt something that might not work, but at least you've given it a go. And yeah, I think that's kind of where we went with that.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, let's call it a day there. Really appreciate you, Nick, for joining us. It's really fantastic to hear your story, a little bit about Bonnie, and advice in general. I think some key takeaways are, get involved with new things. Don't be afraid to start things, and especially things that are a different take on something that already exists. There's so much opportunity out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, and thank you for the people tuning in. We have got an event next Tuesday. Lucy Brown, the Scottish Director for Sotheby's, is joining, so make sure to register for that. And also, apologies if you haven't received your membership card yet. We're having a little bit of admin problems with the distributor for that, but we should get this sorted for the next couple of days. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thanks, guys. And yeah, good luck with